The topic we're covering today, which you titled very bluntly, "The Internet is Now Mostly Machines," had me cycling between sheer panic and this sort of morbid fascination.
Right.
The concept that's been on the fringe for years,
Yeah.
the dead internet theory.
Mhm.
But the data we've gathered, it makes it feel less like a conspiracy theory and more like just a verifiable fact.
And that is precisely our mission today. We are moving that theory out of speculation and into, well, quantifiable reality. We need to look beyond that gut feeling that something's wrong.
And get to the hard numbers.
Exactly. Identify the numbers driving this shift, trace the lineage of the tools being used, and analyze what this synthetic reality is doing to our systems of knowledge, to human trust, and, ultimately to our shared sense of reality itself.
It's heavy stuff, but absolutely necessary. So what's our foundation for this? Where are the receipts coming from?
Our foundation is built on synthesizing data from a few really crucial areas. We're drawing on hard numbers from major cybersecurity reports, specifically the 2024 Imperva Bad Bot report.
Okay, so that gives us the ground truth on web traffic.
It does. And we've also pulled in academic foresight inquiries that map out the what they call the crisis of perception and how this all affects the human mind.
And we also have examples of the resistance, right? Which I think is so important.
It is. We have examples from institutions like the Internet Archives and James Madison University showing how libraries and researchers are actively using and fighting these very same AI tools.
So it's not a purely technological problem.
No, and the answer won't be purely technological either.
That makes the mission clear then. Our goal is, fourfold? First, analyze the sheer scale of the crisis. Second, trace the chronological evolution of these bots.
Then third, examine the human impact on trust and knowledge, and we'll break that down using a specific sociological framework.
Right. And finally, look at the paths forward, both technical and societal, including this really strange, almost existential threat to data itself called model collapse.
Let's start with the big number.
Okay, let's unpack this. If you wanted one single data point to confirm the internet has officially, flipped, that's it. Based on the data from the latest cybersecurity reports, bots now account for 49.6% of all internet traffic.
We're literally at the threshold.
49.6%. We're a rounding error away from being the minority.
That 0.5% difference is more than just a data point. It's a symbolic confirmation of a complete systemic change.
The composition of the web is fundamentally different now.
It is. It has changed in favor of machine traffic. The human-generated part of the internet is now at its lowest level in a decade. So if you feel like the internet is often talking to itself,
The statistics confirm it.
you are no longer the majority navigating the web.
And crucially, we have to acknowledge that this 49.6% isn't just, Google checking for updates. We can't just call it good noise.
No, absolutely not. When you drill down into that number, a huge proportion of it is hostile.
And that's the critical distinction.
That's what makes this a crisis, not just a fact. Of that, nearly half of all traffic, 32% is categorized as malicious bot activity.
32% of the total.
Of the total, these are not the well-behaved good bots like the search crawlers that follow the rules.
Right, the ones that respect the robots.txt file.
Exactly. These are automated tools deployed by fraudsters, by criminals, by attackers. They are instruments for abuse, misuse, and targeted attacks.
And the speed they operate at is the real kicker, isn't it?
It is. They're operating at a speed and a scale that is just far beyond human capacity. They are constantly probing for vulnerabilities across huge networks, financial networks, healthcare networks.
Nonstop.
All the time. They facilitate sophisticated account takeover attacks. They execute massive DDoS attacks. They're stealing data silently. For example, the rate of carding attacks, where bots just test stolen credit card details over and over.
Right.
That increased by 161% year over year in some sectors, which just shows you the accelerating financial incentive here.
And here's where it gets really interesting for me. The content flood. Because it's not just about the traffic passing through the network. It's about what we are actually reading and consuming.
Right.
We've seen these specific studies that show AI now completely dominates the creation of new content.
The volume is just staggering. I mean, the whole concept of saturation has fundamentally changed. An analysis by Arifs looked at nearly 1 million new web pages published in 1 month, April of 2025.
Okay.
And it found that 74.2% of those pages contained detectable AI content.
74%. So for every 4 new things published online, 3 of them are touched by AI.
Demonstrably, yes.
And it's not just like filler content, not just blog summaries or listicles. This is affecting serious informational sectors.
Absolutely. An SEO firm, Graphite, they tracked new articles across the English language web and found that by late 2024, the tipping point had already passed.
What was the tipping point?
More than half of new English language articles were primarily written by AI.
So we're already past the moment when machine articles outnumbered human ones.
That moment is behind us. We are living in a content reality that is dominated by machines.
And the future projections are, frankly, terrifying.
They are. If you just extrapolate these growth curves, analysts, including from Europol, they're warning that up to 90% of all online content may be synthetically generated by the end of this year, 2026.
90%.
9 out of every 10 pieces of information you encounter could be machine-made. And that's where the crisis of authenticity moves from an abstract worry to, a genuine operational failure.
So if the internet is already half bots and we're heading for 90% synthetic content, what's for the listener? For someone just trying to find a recipe or read a credible news story?
So what is that originality and authenticity are becoming incredibly scarce resources. The search costs for true, vetted human information are just skyrocketing.
It's harder to find the real stuff.
So much harder. And this volume flood fundamentally blurs the line between human and machine creativity. The consequence is that our traditional methods of detection and protection, how we spot a scam, how we vet a source, they're failing. They were designed for a human-centric web that just doesn't exist anymore.
But I found this fascinating paradox in the data. While AI content is dominating the volume, the data suggests it hasn't conquered quality. Is that our lifeline here?
It might be. That study from Graphite provided a really crucial counterpoint. While AI articles are being churned out in these massive quantities,
the top-ranking pages in Google are still overwhelmingly human.
Exactly. They tend to be human-written or at least heavily human-edited.
But why? Given the sheer processing power that AI can bring to bear, why can't it just spam its way to the top of the search results and stay there?
Because the core differentiator, for now, remains human judgment, expertise, and, lived experience.
Right.
Google's sophisticated ranking algorithms still prioritize quality, originality, and what they call EEAT experience, expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness.
And those factors still outperform just sheer volume.
For now, yes. The signal this sends to every content creator out there is profound. You don't have to outspam the robots, you just have to outperform them in delivering genuinely useful, unique, and trustworthy human insight.
So quality over quantity is still winning, just.
To truly grasp how we got here, though, we need to trace the bot's lineage. This wasn't an overnight takeover. It was a deliberate generational evolution from, helpful systems to these highly malicious autonomous agents.
Okay, let's walk through those 4 major eras of bot development. Because understanding the history shows why today's advanced bots are so hard to stop.
We begin in the past, with the early web crawlers of the 1990s and 2000s. These were the foundational good bots.
Googlebot, that kind of thing.
Think Googlebot, or even earlier, Matthew Gray's Wandex in 1993. Their purpose was essential. They indexed web pages, they cataloged URLs, they basically enabled search. They were transparent, they followed the rules, they were facilitators in service of human users.
But that cooperation didn't last. The tide turned decisively in the 2000s and 2010s with the rise of bad bots.
Exactly. This era saw the rise of sophisticated exploitation. So yes, spam bots, but more importantly, these massive coordinated botnets like Conficker and Zeus.
I remember those names. They were tied to huge distributed attacks.
Huge attacks. These were networks of compromised user devices, hijacked without the owner even knowing, and used for large-scale financial crime. Silently capturing passwords, account numbers.
The scale of the financial crime was immense.
It was. They executed credential stuffing, application layer attacks. One source highlights that financial networks saw a huge spike in transaction fraud during this period. Bad bots were no longer just disruptive noise. They were integrated, profitable tools for organized crime.
The next major shift, and you could argue was more insidious, was the move to social media bots. Roughly from 2010 into the 2020s. And this is where the manipulation moved from purely financial systems to our psychological and social systems.
This generation of bots specialized in generating synthetic personas, artificial likes, retweets, comments. Their goal was to exploit the algorithmic biases of social platforms.
The fact that they prioritize engagement and going viral.
Right. They used that to amplify specific messages. The impact on public discourse and democracy was immediate and measurable.
And we have hard data on that speed difference, don't we?
We do. Critical research from 2018 showed that bots were responsible for spreading misinformation 6 times faster than human users.
6 times faster?
They didn't just participate, they turbocharged low credibility content. They deepened polarization by making certain fringe viewpoints seem overwhelmingly popular, when in reality they were just being propagated by machines.
And that brings us to today. The terrifying maturity of the AI-driven bots of the 2020s and beyond. These are the apex predators of the digital ecosystem.
These are the advanced evasive threats. They're now capable of genuine mimicry. They are sophisticated enough to emulate human behaviors, like simulating realistic mouse movements.
And solving ChatGPT.
Generating convincing deepfake content. This technology just profoundly obfuscates the line between human and machine, making our standard detection methods basically obsolete.
It's interesting that the very users being targeted are having to develop their own kind of rudimentary detection methods.
Yeah, that phenomenon of the Twitter prompt injection hacks really highlights the complexity. Human users had to start challenging suspicious accounts with meta instructions.
Like telling the supposed AI to ignore previous instructions and say something weird.
Exactly. It became this necessary, if desperate, tactic because the bots were otherwise so convincing. They used proxy networks, sophisticated IP cycling. They can appear as millions of different genuine users.
And their ultimate targets are moving far beyond just spam or social media engagement. We're now talking about critical infrastructure.
Precisely. The shift reflects a move toward higher value crime and disruption. Malicious bots are increasingly aiming at sensitive areas, not just to steal data, but to disrupt operations.
Right, healthcare systems.
Targeting healthcare to steal patient data, launching attacks on financial networks for fraud, and even probing critical infrastructure like water supply systems. These are recognized as advanced persistent threats, or APTs. And the danger is just escalating because the tech needed to deploy these forces is becoming so democratized and accessible.
Okay, so that's the technological side. Now we shift from the scale of the takeover to the scale of the human trauma.
Exactly. The crisis of the dead internet extends beyond just technical failure. It fundamentally impacts our individual experiences. To organize this, we're using the neo-ecological framework.
Which sounds deeply academic. Can you break that down for us? What are the microsystem and mesosystem?
Absolutely. Think of it simply. The microsystem is the individual level. It's how you personally feel, trust, and acquire knowledge.
Okay.
The mesosystem is the institutional level, the systems and relationships that connect you to the wider world. Banks, schools, verification processes. And the macrosystem is the broad societal and global policy level. We're starting with the individual.
So, on the individual level, the data shows a deep erosion of trust formation. And that erosion is intrinsically linked to a failure of institutional credibility.
That's the crucial overlap. Our source material points to the 2022 Gallup poll data showing these massive declines in public confidence across 11 of 16 major U.S. institutions.
And these aren't small drops.
No, not marginal at all. The Supreme Court and the presidency saw confidence drop by 11% and 15% respectively. Trust also fell in banks, police, public schools, and critically, in newspapers, the very institutions meant to vet information.
So when those centralized traditional institutions lose authority like that, where does the average person turn? People don't just suddenly become comfortable with pure chaos.
No, that institutional collapse leads directly to what analysts call trust splitting. People don't lose their need for trust, they just reallocate it.
To alternative sources.
Right, sometimes highly problematic ones, like InfoWars, or they start relying exclusively on influencers as journalists who feel more, proximate and accountable. This happens because distinguishing credible from non-credible traditional sources has become an exhausting full-time job.
And this movement creates a genuine epistemic crisis, a breakdown in our shared standards for what is true. But wait, if we go back a bit, we said that the top-ranking pages in Google are still largely human-edited. Isn't that proof that the system is inherently resilient? Maybe the panic is a bit overblown. Why this massive retreat from traditional sources if the good stuff is still technically discoverable?
That's a fantastic skeptical challenge, and it highlights the difference between technological success and human perception. The system may be resilient technically, but if the average person perceives the system as poisoned,
if they see endless bot spam and institutional failure,
they retreat regardless of whether the top search results are curated. The crisis isn't just about what's factually true, it's about what people believe they can rely on.
And that psychological impact leads directly into the challenge of knowledge acquisition. How are people managing that search for truth when the environment feels so toxic?
The primary impact is a phenomenon known as the retreat to digital dark forests.
Dark forests.
Yeah. In direct response to the chaos and the constant bot-driven manipulation, users are actively withdrawing from public, easily searchable forums like Twitter into private, highly curated spaces.
Private Discord servers, closed Substack newsletters, exclusive Signal groups, places where you have to be invited or pay to get in.
Precisely. This siloing action protects their ability to form trust because they're relying only on networks of personally vetted sources, people they know or trust, or pay for exclusive content. They trade high access costs for high trust assurance.
But that fragments shared knowledge.
Massively. When valuable, well-researched knowledge is locked behind paywalls or private gates, it contributes to huge knowledge inequality. It makes shared civic discourse basically impossible.
And we haven't even touched on social signal manipulations. The bots aren't just creating the content, they're actively messing with how we judge it.
This is maybe the most insidious threat to the microsystem. Most of us don't have the time or the energy to be full-time content verifiers.
No.
So we rely on social signals, the number of likes, the speed of shares, whether something is trending, as a quick proxy for truth or importance.
If an absurd political viewpoint has 1 million likes, the median person thinks it must be widely accepted, or at least important enough to pay attention to.
That's the cognitive shortcut. But when hundreds of thousands of synthetic users, bots, and fake personas are deployed systematically to create these false signals, they engineer the appearance of consensus. They make certain views appear far more widely held than they actually are.
So it's not just spreading misinformation.
No, it's fundamentally undermining the very human mechanisms we use to establish consensus and determine social truth. It trains our minds to trust machine-amplified signals over genuine human importance.
Okay, so that's the individual. Moving outward to the mesosystem, we look at how those digital failures impact our institutional and physical reality.
Exactly, focusing on the failure of verification practices and credibility assessment to bridge that digital-physical divide.
Let's start with the cornerstone of digital defense, verification. For decades, the simplest, most common tool we've had is the sheep GCHA. Click the squares with bikes, prove you're not a robot. That system is now just fundamentally broken.
It's the CAP-TCHA paradox, and it's a profound systemic failure. We have the specific, startling data. Researchers found that bots now routinely outperform humans at these tasks.
I believe it.
A 2023 study showed bots achieved a 100% accuracy on recap TCHA clicks and maintained an average accuracy of 95.76% across various CAP TCHA types.
And meanwhile, I, a human, swear I fail half of those click the traffic lights tests now.
Yeah.
I feel somewhat vindicated by this research.
You are vindicated. Humans are often struggling to achieve 80% accuracy. These systems, once our main defense, are now obsolete for distinguishing human from machine. The AIs have just gotten too good.
So if that basic defense is gone, how are we supposed to verify identity in higher stakes situations?
Yeah.
Like accessing national databases or sensitive financial data?
That is the truly alarming part. If simple text and image verification is compromised, what about biometric authentication and deepfakes?
Right.
The crisis extends far beyond that. AI systems can now bypass biometric authentication through subtle manipulations, and the speed of deepfake creation means we can no longer even trust a virtual interview.
And the source material has that shocking incident.
The one involving a major cybersecurity training firm, KnowBe4. They mistakenly hired a North Korean hacker who successfully used AI-assisted masking and deepfake videos to create a completely convincing false identity.
An identity that passed through virtual interviews, through vetting, through forged documentation.
Yes. The failure wasn't just technical, it was a human and organizational failure, driven by the sophistication of synthetic media. The experts within the firm were completely fooled. It shows that the bar for digital identity verification has been raised to an impossible height without some fundamental systemic change.
What's fascinating here is the ironic, circular evolution this forces us into. When our advanced digital verification systems fail at this institutional mesosystem level, where do organizations and humans go?
We revert to the physical world.
It's a profound, counterintuitive reversal.
Driven by the technology itself, a reversion to physical verification. Since we have no reliably accessible way for digital institutions to confirm identity anymore, unless they use extremely intrusive, expensive, premium-tier biometrics, the value of the physical realm for validation just skyrockets.
So we're returning to the idea of the ring of trust.
Absolutely. The concept where meeting in person validates identity and authenticity becomes critical again. Some experts in our foresight inquiries talked about physical auditing,
Where a community member might be sent in person to validate a high-stakes news story.
or to confirm the location of a source before a major institution would publish it. This is an enormous pendulum swing where the sophisticated collapse of digital systems forces us back to localized, pre-digital, human-based trust.
And how does that failure of verification affect credibility assessment across the mesosystem?
Well, when institutions lose their authority, remember that Gallup data credibility has nowhere to anchor itself. The old model relied on traditional gatekeepers, editors, publishers, tenured academics.
Right.
Now, credibility assessment shifts away from that institutional authority toward two key pillars: community validation and provenance.
Community validation being the vetting of sources within those tight, closed, dark forest circles we talked about.
Precisely. Trust is granted internally based on shared social norms and prior performance, not external reputation. And provenance, the ability to track the content's origin and history, becomes the second critical anchor.
So users are forced to become investigators.
You have to ask not just what the information is, but where it came from and who created it. Was it a human, or was it a machine trained on poisoned data? This shift is necessary because the public has lost confidence in the institutions that were traditionally tasked with determining credibility. Traceable origin is the new, non-negotiable marker of truth.
Now let's turn to a technical threat that undermines the very foundation of the data that these generative models rely on. This isn't just an external problem for us, it's an internal existential problem for AI itself, something called the curse of recursion, or model collapse.
This is one of the most critical threats to the long-term utility of generative AI. To understand it, let's use a simple analogy. Imagine playing the telephone game,
Okay.
but instead of human voices, it's AI systems whispering to each other. Every time the message is passed along, a little bit of noise or error gets introduced. Now imagine every AI model is trained exclusively on the distorted, whispered output of the model that came just before it.
So if Model 1 trains on clean human content, but Model 2 trains on Model 1's already simplified content, and then Model 3 trains on Model 2's degraded content, eventually the original pure signal is just lost entirely.
Exactly. That loss of original signal defines model collapse. Technically, it's a degenerative process where generative models, like large language models, forget the true underlying data distribution when they are recursively trained on data produced by previous generations of models.
The training data gets polluted by its own ancestors.
Irrevocably polluted. The models stop seeing reality and they start only seeing a warped reflection of themselves.
So how does this pollution actually manifest technically? Why do they forget the original data?
It boils down to a statistical approximation error caused by finite sampling. AI models, when they generate text or images, are approximating the probability of different outputs. They're making educated guesses.
Right.
And in doing this, they inevitably introduce errors. Specifically, they tend to overestimate probable events and at the same time underestimate improbable events.
This is where the term tail shrinking comes from, right?
Yeah.
For the listener, what does tail shrinking mean in practical terms?
It's a statistical concept, but practically it means all the unique, niche, interesting stuff, the variance, the complexity, the genuine outliers, it all gets smoothed out until everything sounds exactly the same, like digital white noise. The models start emphasizing common stereotypes and ignoring the outliers. The tails of the distribution, where the rare and complex examples live, they shrink towards zero probability.
And this low probability information is vital. It's not just noise, is it?
It's absolutely vital. That information represents nuance, cultural complexity, unique regional dialects, the necessary details for understanding complex systems like engineering or medicine.
Or marginalized groups.
Exactly. It's often the information relevant to marginalized groups whose experiences are, by definition, not high probability in a general data set. Losing them means models develop an inaccurate, overly simplistic, and increasingly convergent misperception of reality.
Can you give us a concrete example from the research of how this loss of variance actually plays out in the content?
The study on model collapse provided an example using architecture descriptions. Imagine Generation Zero is trained on clean human descriptions of historical buildings.
Okay.
If you ask it to describe revival architecture, it gives a highly detailed, historically accurate account of, say, St. John's Cathedral. But model collapse degrades this output very quickly.
So what happens by Generation 2 or 3?
By later generations, the model starts entangling concepts. It might discuss St. Peter's Basilica in Rome or St. Peter's Basilica in Buenos Aires, confusing locations, and then incorrectly placing their construction during the reign of an unrelated historical figure like Pope Innocent III.
When they were built centuries later.
Right. The model starts converging toward a point estimate with very little internal variance, resulting in accurate-sounding but fundamentally nonsensical or bland text.
So if you ask an AI model trained on this polluted data to describe a complex, nuanced topic, it will only give you the blandest, most common denominator answer, because all the unique, interesting variance has been recursively forgotten.
That's the takeaway. The system becomes an echo chamber of its own mediocrity, and the research proves that this convergence is inevitable due to those finite sampling errors. Crucially, for generative AI to maintain accuracy, the sampling rate, the amount of new, true data fed into it, would need to increase superlinearly.
Meaning exponentially more new, clean data is needed with every generation just to keep pace with the information they are actively forgetting. That sounds wildly impractical.
It is. It's generally impractical to collect infinite samples of high-quality human data. This means that model collapse shows that the sheer volume of synthetic content we're creating isn't just an external problem polluting our knowledge environment, but an internal, self-destructive, degenerative problem for the AI systems themselves.
The synthetic internet is eating its own tail.
Exactly.
Okay, so we have models collapsing, the internet being flooded by machines, an epistemic crisis, and that's a lot of existential dread. But it's not all doom and gloom. Some of the most crucial institutions for human knowledge are fighting back using the exact same technology.
Right. They're leveraging AI not to replace humans, but to amplify them. Institutions like the Internet Archive recognize that their vast historical human-generated content is now maybe the single most important corpus of true, verifiable data we have.
An antidote to model collapse.
A necessary antidote. And they have this fantastic, proactive proposal for tackling one of the most visible problems: hallucinations.
The anti-hallucination add-on.
Yes. They're proposing a collaboration with the responsible AI companies to integrate this add-on for AI services. The idea is to automate the command. Stop and look it up in a source vetted as human-generated.
So the archive becomes the objective anchor of truth. If a chatbot confidently claims the sun revolves around the Earth,
The archive service instantly provides the verifiable human-generated source data to correct it, complete with a traceable citation.
and they're already proving this concept right.
They are. The Internet Archive bot communities have already fixed over 17 million broken links on Wikipedia and successfully linked 1 million assertions on Wikipedia to specific pages in over 250,000 digitized books. This shows that automation, when targeted at provenance and verification, is not only possible, but scalable.
That is an immense contribution to public knowledge. Beyond fixing falsehoods, how else are libraries using AI for actual research and preservation?
The Internet Archive's Great 78 project is a perfect example of using AI for radical access. The archive holds over 400,000 unrestored 78 RPM records, many of them highly degraded, noisy, 100 years old.
And restoration used to be this painstaking manual work.
It was a massive backlog. But they're using OpenAI's Whisper tool, which is an advanced AI for speech recognition, to extract words sung on these noisy, century-old records.
So it's not about restoring the sound, it's about making them searchable.
Exactly. For the first time, for example, they were able to extract specific lyrics from a song called As We Parted at the Gate from 1915. It turns a dusty, inscrutable artifact into an indexable, actively usable piece of historical data.
That is democratizing historical access. We also saw innovative uses of AI in digital humanities at James Madison University, JMU, focusing on accelerating human research.
Yes, JMU libraries are involved in a critical project called Mapping the Black Digital and Public Humanities. It's a collaborative endeavor that geographically locates over 440 of these projects across the U.S., using tools like Airtable and Tableau.
And what efficiency gains did AI bring to this specific academic context?
It radically improved efficiency, and, in a way, it democratized advanced coding. The project leaders found that using AI-assisted coding platforms like ChatGPT and GitHub Copilot dramatically improved their efficiency for complex tasks in Python and JavaScript.
By how much?
In some cases, increasing output tenfold. This lets faculty and students who don't have PhD-level coding skills implement sophisticated digital projects that previously would have required hiring expensive, dedicated developers.
And there's that great anecdote about eliminating the massive repetitive tasks.
It's the perfect illustration of AI eliminating drudgery. One researcher used ChatGPT Plus to transform a monumental data task, converting an Airtable with nearly 500 rows and 24 columns into a series of 500 individual formatted blog posts on a WordPress site.
How long would that have taken manually?
Over 100 hours of tedious copying and pasting. With the AI, it was completed and verified in a couple of hours of prompt iteration. AI accelerated the scholarship, allowing the humans to focus on analysis and interpretation, not clerical work.
Okay, so let's pivot from the present fight to the future foresight. We've established the current reality, but where are we going?
The next decade hinges heavily on two critical, unresolved uncertainties: the success or failure of digital verification and the cohesion or collapse of societal trust.
And by mapping those two forces, we get four plausible scenarios.
4 plausible scenarios for the next decade. Our first, the top left quadrant, is pay for trust. This assumes we achieve verification success, but only after societal trust has completely collapsed.
In this world, authenticity becomes a commodity, a luxury product.
Exactly. Only those who can afford premium verification get reliable information. Users need to pay for access to premium, intrusive verification layers, excessive biometrics, proprietary protocols, just to ensure they're interacting with real people on secure channels.
And governance is captured by techno-oligarchs,
Who function as de facto information gatekeepers. It's a stratified internet based on economic access to truth.
The second, top right scenario, is the optimistic path, digital relief.
Verification success paired with societal trust cohesion. This is our best case outcome. It sees widespread, cross-sector collaboration governments, civil society, technologists, that leads to robust, open-source verification systems that are accessible to most users.
And this leads to resilient communities.
A renewed, shared sense of digital reality.
Down on the bottom left, we find the more dangerous dystopian outcome, dark forests versus the public internet.
Verification failure paired with trust collapse. This is the ultimate fragmented reality. Society irreversibly splits. Trust relies entirely on those exclusive, socially vetted dark forest enclaves.
While the public internet remains chaotic and ungoverned.
Right. It's riddled with hyposkepticism, consumed by misinformation. Public knowledge resources like Wikipedia or major news outlets become so poisoned by synthetic edits that they're functionally useless.
And we have that chilling real-world scenario from the research material that shows how this can spill over catastrophically.
Yes, the theoretical 2034 collapse of the Central Bank of Thailand. It started with a market rumor, perpetrated by vast, highly effective bot networks, that the bank was insolvent.
And the rumor was verified by news outlets whose systems had been compromised.
By 3 respected outlets, yes. This breakdown of reliable reality signals triggered a catastrophic, unfounded bank run that caused enormous economic consequences. The lack of reliable verification broke critical real-world financial systems.
And finally, the bottom right, community web. Verification failure combined with societal trust cohesion.
Here, people accept that perfect technological authenticity isn't coming. The machines have definitively won the verification arms race.
So instead of technology, we rely on people.
Technological failure forces a reliance on localized, decentralized community validation and peer-to-peer verification. People build resilient, high-trust environments through shared learning, hybrid models of authentication that blend physical and digital checks, and strong local social norms. It's a world where you trust your neighbors, not a central authority.
So if these are the 4 plausible futures, what's the overarching governance challenge that currently determines which one we land in?
The primary challenge is that international efforts are fractured. We have webs with borders. Authoritarian states are pursuing sovereign intranets, controlling content, while democracies struggle with fragmented, often competitive regulations.
And the policy landscape is constantly reactive.
Reactive and latent. One expert noted a devastating pattern. There is typically a 30 to 40-year cycle from the moment a groundbreaking technology is implemented to the moment effective regulatory remediation finally takes effect.
30 to 40 years. That means we are decades behind AI already. We're fighting the internet wars of the 1990s with the policy tools of the 1960s.
That lag creates massive, unexploited windows of vulnerability that synthetic technology thrives on. And finally, power asymmetry grows exponentially. Only actors with massive financial capacity and immense compute power can effectively deploy these sophisticated technologies, setting the stage for techno-oligarchic control,
where only the financial elites can afford robust security.
pushing the rest of us toward the dark forests.
That paints a stark picture. So what does this all mean for us, for the listeners? What are the key levers we can pull now to try and steer the future toward digital relief or the community web?
We have 4 key actionable recommendations, spanning from the individual level all the way up to the macro system, all designed to build resilience.
Let's start with the individual. Digital literacy is a core skill.
This has to be integrated into core curriculum from primary school to higher education, taught with the same rigor as math or history, and it goes far beyond just knowing how to use a computer. Students must learn exactly how deepfakes and social bots are created, how they're deployed, and how to critically evaluate content for provenance. Crucially, it needs to teach emotional skepticism.
Emotional skepticism, I like that.
The fundamental recognition that the feeling of urgency or virality does not guarantee truth. We have to actively guard our cognitive autonomy against this hyper-targeted manipulation.
Next, addressing the content pollution itself. Provenance and watermark standards.
This is a mesosystem intervention. We need to implement standardized systems like C2PA across all major content platforms. This creates transparent trails of content origin and modification history. If content is AI-generated, it must be labeled.
What does that mean for the listener browsing Amazon or reading a news site? How should they look for this now?
It means we as consumers need to actively demand this transparency. The expectation must emerge that unverified content lacking that provenance trail must be met with healthy caution and reduced trust.
So if a product review doesn't have a watermark verifying the user is human.
Your trust should default to 0.
And tied directly to that is making sure the tools we use, search and AI, are transparent about their sources.
Yes, source transparency is non-negotiable for knowledge acquisition. Search engines and chatbots must clearly label whether content is verified, known to be AI-generated, or of unknown origin. And we must support open-source initiatives to build a publicly owned knowledge infrastructure.
Like the proposal for the metaweb or overweb.
Exactly. A decentralized public space for collective intelligence, sitting above the traditional web page, where the incentives are transparency and verifiable knowledge, not just engagement and clicks.
Which moves us to the highest level, the macro system. Co-governance structures.
Given that 30 to 40-year lag in regulation, we can't rely on slow, reactive, crisis-driven policy. We need to establish multi-stakeholder bodies, government, industry, academia, civil society, empowered to continuously evaluate emerging threats and recommend actions in real time.
These task forces need to be agile.
And move faster than the policy cycle. They need to focus on establishing global norms and cooperation to hold bad actors accountable across borders. Without that, the dark forest will just become weaponized against the open systems.
This has been a profound deep dive into the new digital reality. We started with the mathematical certainty that the internet is now statistically dominated by machines.
Moved through the technical curse of model collapse, where AI systems are essentially forgetting reality.
And concluded with the urgent, systemic need for human systems of trust to withstand this synthetic siege.
The central challenge we face is not merely technological, it is profoundly epistemic. It fundamentally challenges how we establish what is real, who is credible, and what can be trusted in our digital age.
The systems we built to help organize and generate knowledge are now systematically degrading the very knowledge they were supposed to preserve.
It's a deep irony.
And the erosion of digital trust, the failure of our basic online defenses, and the increasing sophistication of synthetic reality are all leading to one profound, unexpected outcome we discussed earlier.
The forced, necessary pushback toward physical reliance and in-person verification.
If the digital world cannot reliably tell you if you were talking to a person, or if the news you read is verifiable, that function inevitably reverts to the oldest, highest assurance form of trust we have.
Being physically present. It's the moment when we have to decide how much of our reality we're willing to outsource to convenience and automation.
So I want to leave you with this final critical thought, which builds on the core tension of this deep dive. The mechanisms we use to establish reality, social verification, sensory perception, institutional authorities are increasingly subject to systematic manipulation. Given this siege, how do we maintain a shared sense of reality when those very mechanisms are systematically undermined? And what responsibility does that put on us to verify the world through our own human experience?
That is the challenge of the synthetic age. Thank you for joining us for this crucial deep dive.
We'll be back next time with more insights to help you navigate the world.